This is a video on how to debug your Python code. I'm using PyCharm, however we will be using the Python PDB debugger that comes pre-installed with Python. So this is relevant to Python regardless of the IDE. Python PDB, by the way, stands for Python Debugger. It is used to debug Python code, and it's an interactive debugger module that comes built in with Python. It enables you to navigate through your code step by step, examining variables and troubleshooting problems in your Python program. And it's important to understand how to use PDB, because although you may have the luxury of using an IDE and its built-in features for debugging like PyCharm, there will be times when you are debugging Python code on other systems like servers and you are not able to use an IDE. So this is where it's important to understand how to use the Python debugger from the command line. Now in this slide we can see many of the commands we can use with the Python debugger. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We are going to have a look at this in PyCharm, but we can see on the top left how to start the Python debugger. So it's python-m pdb, and then it's the file name, so I've called it myfile.py, which will start the debugger. And by the way, over here at the bottom right is the help command. And this is a key command you can use frequently because it will show you the commands available. And if you needed to know what a specific command was, you can do help and then type the command. For example, I can do help and then type break, and then it will give me some information about the command break. So we can see all of these commands, and we can see you can type C for short or the full word, continue, down, next, return, step, up, but there is the shortcut to these commands as well, so you just have to type C or D, N, R, S or U. So all of these have shortcuts. On the slide before, although it was not the full exhaustive list of commands, it was many of the commands, but this is more of the frequently used debugger commands, and these include the following. And the first one is break, and the break command is used to set up breakpoints in your code. And the breakpoint is used where you need a debugger to pause execution, allowing you to inspect the program state variables and control flows at that particular point. So that way your full program does not execute using the debugger. It lets you inspect chunks of code at a time using these breakpoints. So you run the code, and whatever you need to stop the code from running, you specify a breakpoint there. And then you can analyze your code and what the debugger has seen before continuing with the rest of your code. And you can set up multiple breakpoints. There's also continue, and this will continue execution until the next breakpoint or until the program ends. So this executes the code until the end of the code unless it hits a breakpoint. Help, which displays help information for the debugger commands, and list, which lists the source code, and so it prints 11 lines of code around the current line, and if you type it again it will print the next set of code after that, so you can see what's next in your code. It's a good reminder to show you where you are and what's coming next. By the way, you can also do a double L for long list, which will give you a bigger chunk of lines. Then there's step and next. The step command executes the current line of code and enters into any function called on that line. So it allows you to dive into the function and debug it line by line. So you will actually be debugging the function line by line. Whereas next, the next command also executes the current line of code, but it does not dive into any function calls encountered on that line. So the difference between step and next is step, you step into a function, and with next, you step over a function. We will have a look at step and next and the key difference in PyCharm. Then there's return or R, which continues execution until the current function returns. Print evaluates and prints the value of an expression or a variable. Quit will exit the debugger. Where will print the current position and stack trace. You can use the where to find where you are in execution. And the last one is what is. And the what is command is used to display the type of specified expression or variable used. It allows you to quickly check the data type of a particular object during debugging, like a float, string, integer, etc. Next, we can go into PyCharm and have a look at the Python PDB debugger. And we are in PyCharm, and I have some basic code here. So we are printing hello1, hello2 and hello3 to the screen. Then I have created a function called my_profit, and we are adding profit_1 and profit_2 together. And then we are calling the function here, my_profit. And then we've got some input variables asking the user how much money did you make today. And then we add profit_1 and profit_2 over here as well. And we store this in total underscore profit and we add them together. And then we print total underscore profit to the screen. So if I run this file, we can see it prints hello 1, hello 2 and hello 3. It also adds the two numbers together, which is the one from my function over here, 5 plus 1 equals 6. And then for how much money did you make today, I can specify some values. Let's go with 8 and 10. And we can see from the result it's 810. So it concatenates them together, it does not add them together. Now to start Python PDB in PyCharm, we'll right click my file, firstpy file.py, and we will open in terminal. And you have to ensure you are working from the correct path where your files reside. So you can do that again by right clicking your file, and then you can go to copy path reference and copy absolute path. But we can see I'm already in the correct path. But the way we do that, we type cd for change directory and then right click paste, and then it will paste in my path. We don't want my file, of course, so we remove that, and then we press enter and we will be in the correct directory. For me it's the same directory, and we can also run the file from here. We just specify Python and then the file name .py, but we are not going to do that. We have already ran the file using the play icon in PyCharm. Instead we are going to start the debugger, and the way we do that is Python -m PDB and then the file name. Don't forget the .py extension at the end and press enter. Now if we have a look, we can see our actual source code on the left, and we can see it's print hello 1, which is the very first line of our source code, and we can see the debugger starts at the very first line of the source code, so we can see that over here. And now this is where we can type help to see the debugger commands. So if we type help, we can see many of them here. A lot of them are short abbreviations. For example, N for next, L is for long list if you want to see the next chunk of lines, H for help, or you can type help. So if we type H here, we'd get help again. Clear will clear the console, and you can see all the short abbreviations again. Q for quit, R for restart, and then we can find out what a specific command means. So we can do H for help, and then let's say we want to find out what break means. So break is for breakpoints. It also tells you how to configure break. Let's do another one. Let's do N for next. So it gives you information about what next is. Now let's have a look at some of the commands. So we know we are at the top line of code, but if we type in list, it will tell us where we are. So the arrow icon here, we are at the top, prints hello 1 over here, and then it shows us the next 11 lines of code. If we do list again, it shows us the next chunk of lines as well. But because our source code is so short, it shows us everything. Now you can imagine if you are in middle of debugging your code and you have hundreds of lines of code and you just want to see what your next 11 lines of code is, you can use a list command. Also there's the L for long list. So the list is a bit longer. We can also specify the command where, so it will tell us where we are in our code. So of course we haven't done anything yet, so we are still on hello 1, but we can do N for next to execute the current line of code. So if we do N here, we can see it's executed that, so we've got hello 1 as the output here, and now we can see with the arrow we are on the second line of code. So using N we can execute the code line by line. So I've pressed it again, now I've pressed it the third time. We can see this time, we can see now it's printed out hello 3, which is here on the third line, and we can see the arrow points to my function. Now this is the difference between next and step. So next is referred to as step over, where step is referred to as step into. If you recall, I said earlier, step is used to enter into a function, while next is used to execute the current line without diving into the function. So at the minute we can see we specified N when we was on my function, my underscore profit. So it's jumped from line 4, it's jumped to line number 9. So we are on my function, calling my function, my underscore profit. And it's not really given us any output here with 5, 1, print profit 1 plus profit 2. None of that has happened. It's jumped to line number 9. So let's see what it does this time. And we can see it's given us the output of 6. So 5 plus 1 equals 6. So it's called the function and it's jumped to line number 11. So if we quit the program, by the way, Q is for quit, and run the file again, let's do next a few times. So now we are on line number 4, define my underscore profit, which was here when we did N for define my underscore profit. It jumped to line number 9. So let's type in the S to see what happens here, which it does the exact same thing. It's jumped to line number 9. Now this is where the key difference is where there is a function call. So again, if we go to where we specified N, when it jumped to line number 9, it was over here. So we see the arrow, my underscore profit. This is the function call. We specified N, it gives us the output of 6 over here, line number 9, and then it jumped to line number 11. Profit underscore 1 equals input, how much money did you make today? So it's jumped to that line, and then we quit. But it did give us the output of 6, but it stepped over the function. So let's see how S behaves, because S steps into the function. So if we do an S, and we can see the difference. So it says call for function call. And we can see here, define my underscore profit. So it's gone back to the function. So it's jumped from line number 9 back to line number 4. It's going into the function now. Let's do an S again. And now we can see it's going line by line inside the function. I guess we can do an N from here as well. Let's try an N. And we can see it's giving us the second line, profit underscore 2 equals 1. Now at this point we can do a what is as well, because we've defined, or should I say we have executed profit underscore 1 and profit underscore 2. If we wanted to know what these variables are or the type of variables they are, we do a what is, and then we can do profit underscore 2, for example. Okay, so that's my mistake, because actually we have not executed profit underscore 2. We are actually on the line, so we can execute that now by doing N for next. Now let's run the command again, since we have now executed that line, and now we get the result. So it says it's an integer. So that's what the what is command does, by the way. Again, I mean, we can do an S instead here, and it gives us an output of 6. So that's the difference between N and S. N steps over the function call when we were on line number 9. It still gives us the output of 6, but it didn't go through the function. So this, using the S, went through the function. It went through line by line on the function. So it stepped into the function. It did not step over the function. There's also C for continue, but we can do help instead, just to have a look at the commands again. So with C, we can execute the rest of the Python script right to the end. So if we do C, and it's got to the input function where the user has to specify something. I can do 5 here and 20, and we can see the result is 520. I guess if we do a what is this time, what is on profit underscore 1, put a Z on the end of that, so remove the Z. Okay, so it cannot run because the program finished and will be restarted. So instead, if we do quit here again and run the program, we can do a C for continue. I guess C will be more effective from this point because we are starting from the beginning of the program. So at print hello 1, and it will run right through the program until our input value is required. So let's do C. And again, it's got to, how much money did you make today? Let's go with 5 and 2. So of course this is not going to work because the program finished and will be restarted. It says it there. So now what we can see is restarted the program again. So it's restarted at hello 1 again. So that's the thing with continue. It goes right through the program without stopping. It executes the full script. So what we can do instead is use breakpoints. We can either add a breakpoint here. So we can do breakpoint. Now there's a breakpoint on line number 12. So if we do continue this time, it gets to line number 11. How much money did you make today? Let's do 12. And it's not taken that breakpoint into effect. And this is because the program needs restarting. Let's quit this and restart again. And let's hit continue. And let's go with 12 again. Now we can see it's paused. So it's hit the breakpoint here. And it's telling us with the arrow, it's on profit underscore 2. So line number 13. And breakpoints are there for this reason. They allow us to stop execution of the program running at that point we specify. So at a certain point in your code block, we would set a breakpoint. So instead of using next line by line or nest to jump into a function call, for example, you may use continue, but you may specify lots of breakpoints in your code. And that way you can evaluate chunks of code before moving on to the next chunks of code. So I guess because it's already executed, line number 11, profit underscore 1, we can do a what is profit underscore 1. And we can see it's a string, and that's why it's concatenating them together like it was here earlier on, 810. So let's do another C to continue with the rest of the code and do 13. So we get the string concatenated 1213. And the way we would fix this is because it's specifying this as a string, the output value, we would use the function integer and not to forget our brackets. So now we can quit this. And actually, before we start again, let's do another breakpoint over here. So now we can see we've got 2 breakpoints. And then if we run the file again, we start at line number 1, hello 1. Let's do C for continue. So C for continue will execute the whole script or until it hits a breakpoint. So it should hit the first breakpoint, and we can see it's executed line number 3, hello 3 here. And we are on my function now, underscore profit, because it hit the breakpoint on line number 4. And now it should hit the next breakpoint. So it should do line number 12 and then stop at line number 14. So do C for continue. How much money did he make today? Let's do 5. And now we can see it stopped again because of the breakpoint. And do a C for continue again. And let's go with 5. And now we can see it's adding the values together. So that's why we've got 10. So we have used breakpoints inside our actual source code. Let's remove these, because actually if we quit the debugger and restart it, if we specify H for help here, we can see we can specify a breakpoint within the terminal instead, rather than using the source code. So break over here. So let's do a help break. And we can see how we use this. We can also list all breaks. But for us, we want to specify a breakpoint on line number 4. So we do break 4. Now if we do C for continue, we see it's stopped at line number 4. Let's specify break. And we can see there's one breakpoint, and it tells us the breakpoint has already been hit one time. But this is how we specify breakpoints within the debugger rather than using them within the source code itself. And that's it for this video. So in our example, the source code was very simple, but you can imagine hundreds of lines of code and you have issues, bugs, actual bugs, where you want to debug them. So the Python debugger is very useful, it's interactive. You can debug code line by line. You can set breakpoints to debug chunks of code. You can use commands like where you are or what type of variables have been used, amongst other very useful commands as well. So it's worthwhile making sure you understand the basics of Python debugger.